Hello, New Wave of British Heavy Metal.com here. It's the 22nd of January 2021. If I may make the usual opening request for a favour, and that's if you would please subscribe to the channel, that would be marvellous. And today we'll take a quick look at another fine band back in the original New Wave of British Heavy Metal days. Quartz, and in particular their to my mind, classic album, Stand Up and Fight. Now, if you might remember, or you might not, Quartz were just another of those many bands milling around back late 70s, early 80s, all trying to break out in the Nawabban pack, if you want to put it that way. They were from the Midlands area, you know, like Birmingham, Wolverhampton, all that kind of area that was something of a breeding ground for heavy bands, you know, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and any other number that you care to name. And Quartz were just one of them back then. They weren't around for long, but back then, but put out some really solid stuff. They formed, again, if I remember my hazy history, around about 1974, and were called Bandy Legs of all things. But then they changed the name to Quartz, and their self-titled debut album came out in 1977. And to give you some illustration of that Midlands connection, that album was produced by none other than Tony Iommi, of course, Black Sabbath guitarist. And that connection between Quartz and Sabbath had continued for a while. They toured together, and Ozzy Osbourne sang backing vocals on a track that missed the cut on Quartz's debut album, but did eventually see the light of day as a B-side to a single. Anyway, you know, that just a little bit of history. They did the usual stuff. They toured a lot. They were on the bill at the Reading Festival even, and picked up some interesting support slots to the likes of Saxon, UFO, Iron Maiden, Rush, many others. And you'd think from there they'd go on, wouldn't you? A second album came out, which was Stand Up and Fight, and this to me, as I said, it's a minor classic. Brutal, heavy stuff. The riffs are massive. The solos are all over the place, screaming stuff. Monster vocals. Everything about Stand Up and Fight just says enjoyable heavy metal, new wave of British heavy metal, whatever you want to call it. Fantastic stuff. Really is, you know, Stand Up and Fight. But didn't get the sales that it deserved. But Quartz, they kept plugging away. A third album came out, Against All Odds, in '83, I think it was. And that's as far as it went back then. They're probably best known for their cover of the old Mountain song, Nantucket Sleigh Ride. And it's a pity, certainly in my opinion, and many others no doubt, that Quartz didn't manage to break out the pack and were unable to build on those big support slots, as the musical ability that they had stands up against anything, and you know, Stand Up and Fight is a prime example of that. Sometimes it's a bit raw and it's a bit unpolished, but it's enjoyable and heavy, none the same. There's somewhere like a mix up of Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath, I suppose, which probably isn't surprising given that Priest and Sabbath were from the same area as Quartz, right? I did see Quartz a couple of times back then. I saw them when they supported Rush. I think that was a permanent wave tour, wasn't it? Which would have been, 1980? And that was at the old Queen's Hall in Leeds. And if anyone remembers that, it was a huge cavernous venue. The acoustics were shocking. It was always cold. Even if it was 90 degrees outside, it was about minus 90 in that place. It was a shocking venue. But Quartz put up a good show. And then another time, I remember seeing them in a teeny tiny old nightclub in Sheffield. I think it was Josephine's. And there were me, a couple of mates, and about 3 other people. And again, they were excellent. As I remember, it was late at night. Everyone had a few too many beers. Well, the 7 of us that were there, and it was great. And that was not long before they did call it a day back then. But I'd encourage you to check out Quartz if you're not already familiar with them, because Stand Up and Fight really is as good as anything that you'll hear. Monster stuff. If you'd like to check it out, as always, there's a link to the album on Amazon in the description below. So whether, whatever formats it's available in, it's CD streaming, all that stuff. So do that if you'd like to. Subscribe to the channel, please, if you haven't already. That would be excellent. And as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care.